Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis, a podcast dedicated to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Happy Monday, everybody. We just got finished watching the hearing about allowing streaming or not for the preliminaries coming up just in a few weeks for Chad and Lori both. And the Judge Edens, ruled that his ruling will stand and we will be able to see these preliminaries live.
Dun, dun, dun.
But before we get down to the arguments that were made, Lori waived her right to be at that hearing today, and Fruit Loop and I have been talking.
Yeah, that was a shocker.
Yeah, I really thought she would be there. It's the only time she could see Chad.
Yeah.
And she wasn't there. So I wonder if there's trouble in paradise already for the newlyweds.
There's been so much said. Was it because she's embarrassed? Because the 22nd passed and she's still here?
Could it be that she doesn't look like she did before she got arrested? Who knows? But I find it very curious. Interested to read all the opinions later about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He looked rough too, though.
Oh, man. Chad looks sad.
Yeah.
He's lost his cult. He's maybe lost his wife. He could write a country song.
There you go.
He kind of looked like, he was just there.
Yeah.
I mean,
his hair was kind of flipped up on, like, it looked crooked or whatever.
Yeah, his little hip hairdo's growing out. So he's,
Yeah.
But look, I mean, he needs to get used to it because he's going to be on camera for his preliminary. And that's a big deal. There were some good arguments made by both sides. Wood just is concerned that their right to a fair trial needs to be protected. And he went through, he clarified that he has not appeared anywhere on TV about this case. Neither has law enforcement that are directly investigating this case.
Yeah, and I guess what that was about was maybe about the Dateline thing.
I'm not sure. I mean, I have seen, I don't know, I think maybe it was the sheriff in Fremont with the Tammy Daybell case. He did do some question and answers about that at one point. Wasn't that him? He was sort of justifying as to why the autopsy wasn't done.
Yeah, I think that was with Nate. Nate kind of did a little interview.
So I don't know if maybe that was kind of the basis of that.
But if you think about it, the some of the stuff on Dateline, that has to do with Charles's stuff, so it's not even included in this, right?
Maybe that was it. Maybe it was
Moffitt
Charles. That's right. Maybe it wasn't even Tammy.
No, I think he did mention some stuff about Tammy.
Yeah, it's just, there's so many deaths, and like so many people have talked about the deaths, so it's hard to keep up with who. But I'm pretty sure I saw somebody giving an interview about Tammy Daybell.
Yeah,
and the fact that she didn't have an autopsy, and we're going to talk about that later. But Wood's argument is just that he believes that streaming these preliminaries isn't necessary if they are going to offer transcripts to the media to report on and maybe some audio of the hearings. But he was shot down.
Yeah, I mean, I understand his argument. He's wanting a fair trial, but in the end, what did Mark Means say?
Oh, yeah. Props to Mark Means, because he just said what we're all thinking, which is the cat's out of the bag. It doesn't matter if they televise these preliminary hearings or not, because the media attention is so big surrounding this case. You can't put toothpaste back in the tube once you squeezed it out. I mean, but Means literally said the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
And I think that he's right. I think that he understands, obviously, how huge this case is. And while a lot of people don't know the specifics of this case, I think most people have seen the pictures and they know there were bodies in the backyard. That's kind of prejudicial enough to me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a small town, anyways. I think the population, I want to say maybe 12,000, maybe is what I read.
Yeah, it's really tiny.
Yeah. So it's going to be hard, anyways.
Yeah, and I totally trust Wood. I mean, obviously we're for the prosecution, but there's a reason that Wood asked that it be closed, and there's a reason that Means and Pryor, which is Chad Daybell's attorney, have asked that it be public, and I really can't figure it out. Maybe it's to do with still asking for a change of venue later on. That's all I can think.
But to me, that's going to be out the window because they've just asked for for it to be streamed, so they want it public. I did notice that Pryor did talk about support for Daybell's family.
Yeah.
So he mentioned that about them being able to be in the courtroom or whatever. So that's the only thing I could think. Because I don't think they're in there. Well, I mean, we talked before about Kay and Larry being there or whatever, but we haven't really thought about the Daybell side of it. So.
That's true. And there are 5 kids.
Yeah.
And we're not sure at this point if, any of them have stopped supporting their dad since the arrest and the discovery of the kids. The Daybell kids have been quiet.
Yeah, we don't know. So
I've seen things posted from locals who said we don't like rumor, but that they have heard that some of the kids have sort of distanced themselves from their dad. But I mean, I'm not going to go out trying to find that answer. It's not my place. But it seems like out of 5 kids, at least maybe 1 or 2 might be sort of backing off a little bit. Who knows?
Yep.
But Pryor did say, that it should be an open hearing if COVID weren't around and people could line up outside the courthouse and try to get their seat. And because of COVID, we can't. So he just flat out said the other option is just to do what you said originally, which is to Zoom these preliminaries.
Exactly.
So, and then there was attorney Wright. He was the representative for the media. He was only, I guess, retained for this on Thursday of last week. And he obviously believes the live stream was the best option. It's just not as intrusive. And his argument I thought was good is that it provides an accurate depiction of what's happening in that courtroom as opposed to sort of gossipy stuff on social media. And so I think that was a good argument because you know how tales grow taller down the line. And so I do see where some rumor could come out of essentially a closed hearing.
Yeah, and you can read it and you don't know the context. You don't know the way it was said.
Right.
Or stuff like that. So, yeah, I could see where that would.
Yeah. Wood pointed out that right now the Supreme Court is not allowing live stream. But like Pryor kind of chimed in and he said, yeah, we would prefer to have an open courtroom, but we can't right now. So Means followed up with his opinion was that the public's right to access is the most important part here. So Means is arguing we all should have a right to watch these preliminary hearings. And ultimately, like we said at the beginning, Judge Edens agreed and said that he was going to deny the state's motion to not live stream. So we will be carrying those preliminaries. We'll probably try to get a stream up on our website, and I will be live tweeting the 3rd, which is the first day of Chad's hearing. Maybe a little spotty. I had said previously my daughter turns 15. We got to go get her driver's permit. Lord help me. Oh boy. But I will be in and out on that day. And then if it goes over into the next day, I'll be able to live tweet that. If you follow this today, you kind of see how live tweeting goes. It's very fast. We're going to do a little poll on our website and on Twitter if you want me to start a separate feed so I don't fill up your Twitter feed. We'll start talking about that in the next week because August the 3rd is 1 week from today.
I know it's not far. It's close.
I am so curious to see what the state puts forward. I mean, we're finally maybe going to start connecting the first few dots in this really crazy picture.
Yeah. And I mean, they've got to throw everything they have, I would think, the majority, because they have to convince Edens that there's enough to go to trial.
Right. And I had sort of thought maybe murder charges would come down and maybe the preliminaries wouldn't happen. And we still have a week. But if they don't, then next Monday we will be finding out some things we've wondered about since December of last year.
Yep.
I think I hope they show Chad Daybell's cell phone pings.
I know.
And hers.
Yeah, it's going to be, you can get so much information just from that.
Yeah, because, I mean, we don't know where Chad was the night the kids were killed. And we don't know where Lori's phone pinged. It just seems to me if she was in that apartment with Alex, then, I mean, how can you tell who really killed the kids?
Yeah.
What if Chad's cell phone pings in there? It's just going to be fascinating. We've theorized for so long, and we're so close to finally getting some real answers. One of the answers I think we're all waiting on, for me, I think I'm most interested out of this whole case now at this point to hear the results of Tammy Daybell's autopsy.
Yeah.
It's been since December, and they, obviously the state has every reason to not reveal anything until they feel it's time. But we know this was sent up to the Attorney General a couple of months ago.
Yeah. I just can't help but think that they're looking at all of those autopsies.
Yeah.
Alex's, I think it almost seems like they're working with everybody in those, those counties where Alex died, which was Maricopa County, and then the kids, and then Tammy. It's all. I would just wonder if they're comparing everything to try to make sure to find what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about autopsies in a little bit, but it could be a challenge.
Yeah.
There's, and we'll get into that, but I'm just most interested right now to hear her cause of death, if they were able to find one. If not, digital evidence, I think, will definitely come in. But we're going to kind of focus on Tammy Daybell a little bit this evening on this podcast. We really haven't dedicated much time to her other than just sort of talking passively about her. But she really breaks my heart, I have to say. I guess maybe it's just the fact that from what we've learned, she was such a gentle and sweet woman, and just she was in a firestorm.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about Tammy Daybell. She was born May 4th, 1970. And
she passed away. She was 49. And I think like we're 43. Or I'm 43, you're 42.
You old lady.
I know I'm old. But she, passed away at 49. And that's young.
It's super young. She was training for a marathon and apparently was into healthy lifestyles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm really interested in that autopsy report.
Yeah.
I think what's really sad to think about is that for 25 days, she lived in a house where those kids were buried in her backyard.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as she loved kids, clearly, there's just no words to describe how I feel. And thank goodness she didn't know. But, man, that's just eerie.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Chad coming home, what I assume is every night, and having dinner and going to sleep. Not only knowing there are kids in his backyard, but that he's planning to kill her.
Yeah. And he's having an affair on her.
Yeah.
So I do. I feel sorry.
Yeah.
For what she went through in those last months or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're just going to go back to kind of the early days. She grew up in South Pasadena, California, Southern Cal, and she and all of her siblings were chartered members of this mentally gifted students group at her elementary school.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And then when she was 13, they moved to Springville, Utah, where I guess she went to high school probably middle school at 13.
Yeah.
And she played the drums and the clarinet in the high school band. I thought that was really nice.
Yep.
And so she shared a love of books and reading with her family. And I thought this was a really funny story. So she made a library when she was a kid, and it was for her siblings. And if they did not return the books on time, she would make them pay a late fee.
Yeah, I think she had like actual library cards done and everything.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Probably a stickler for the rules, that one.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing, though.
It reminds me of somebody going to be a teacher. You can tell the kid when you're growing up what kid's going to be a teacher. Just by how I've got some friends that all three of them are teachers out of the same family, and I knew at a young age that they were going to be teachers.
Yeah.
Because they like to tell people what to do.
Exactly.
So during the summer following her freshman year at BYU, that's when she met Chad.
Oh, boy.
And they were married pretty quickly in March of 1990 in the Manti Temple. Chad continued his schooling, and Tammy supported the family, working as a secretary for Springville's Parks Department. And that's what we've talked about before, I think. She like entered in information or something, and she would go out there to meet him or whatever when he was working in the graveyard or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So part of her job, she typed thousands of handwritten burial records in a computer database. So this actually caused an interest for her in family history, which later became her hobby. And that stuff is addictive. Like when you start researching.
You're big into that.
Yeah. You go down a rabbit hole, and it's, weeks later, you come out with all kind of information. So,
but you've done a lot for my family on both sides, and what you have found is fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool what you can find.
Now, on Tammy's Pinterest page, her Pinterest page is still up. Hers and Emma's both. They have some things about quotes about ancestors on there and things like that. So apparently, she passed the love of doing this on to her daughter.
Yeah.
It is addictive to start tracing your ancestors, because we are all just this woven product. This collective, patchwork quilt almost of everybody that came before us, and it is a cool subject.
Yeah.
So finally, when Chad finished school, he took a job in Utah, and so they started having their kids, and Tammy just stayed home for a while, and everybody said she was a wonderful mother.
Yep.
And most moms love their kids, and some don't, and that's why we're doing this podcast. But she would encourage her kids to read. It was a big passion of hers. And she definitely loved animals. In fact, on her marker, I believe it says a lover of all animals or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think it's got little ducks on it.
Yeah, that's right. It has little ducks on it. So it's really cute. It's unfortunate it's there.
Yeah.
But I thought it definitely helped me to understand what made her happy in life.
Yeah. So they later returned to Springville, Utah, where Tammy became a computer teacher at a Art City elementary school. So I guess she was kind of like a computer genius and had talents with graphics and doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. In fact, she, I know with Chad, they founded the Spring Creek Book Company, and I think she was the chief financial officer, and she also designed a lot of their book covers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they put out a lot of books over the years. Some of those were aimed at kids. They had some, it was tiny something, like Tiny Tales maybe, or
I remember seeing it. Somebody posted it somewhere. I saw it. Yeah.
So when they're living in Utah, it isn't until 2015 that they moved to Salem, Idaho, where unfortunately that was the last place she was. And when she moved there, she was the assistant librarian at a middle school. And I remember I was looking at her Facebook profile, and you could see people from Utah when she announced that she was leaving or whatever, that a lot of sadness. You could tell people were really going to miss her.
Yeah, she just seemed to be this, really sweet person that everybody loved when they were around her and loved being around her.
Mm-hmm. And she was really active in the church. In fact, the night that she was shot at, on her Facebook, she had written about the experience and said that she had thought about smacking whoever it was with her frozen meals. She had been to a food prep club or something.
Yeah.
She was known for making dinners every Sunday, and she apparently any kind of holiday or birthday did not go unnoticed by her. And I love people like that, because that's just such an indication that they're thoughtful.
Yeah.
They think of others.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with birthdays. So it's like my kids and my immediate family get stuff, and Fruit Loop. I always remember Fruit Loops, but I stink at birthdays. But from what I've read on numerous occasions, she really loved even a little note or just something to brighten people's day.
Yeah. And we know she loved animals, all kind of animals, especially like Indian runner ducks. She knew each one by name.
That is, that's so cool. Like
yeah.
I had 2 ducks one time. They kind of just waddled up to my house, and they stayed around. I could never tell them apart.
Yeah, evidently she was good at it though.
Yeah, but she had a lot of I think she raised rabbits, cats, chickens, pigeons.
Yeah.
So she definitely was big into animals.
Yeah. I think she loved gardening, cooking, game time with family. That's always fun.
Yeah, and a lot of people say her laugh was unique.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things they miss the most about her.
Yeah.
So, her parents, when she passed away, or no, not, I'm sorry, not when she passed away. It wasn't until the kids passed, they found the kids' remains. Her family put out a statement. I'm going to read that now. I think it's just very moving, and probably a testament to these people. And from what we know, they must be good people. They seem to have raised a wonderful daughter. So it says, as the family of our beloved Tammy, we want to extend our deepest and heartfelt love and sympathy to the families of Tylee and JJ. We share the pain of the tremendous and shocking loss you are enduring. We still suffer, and we will suffer with you for many years to come. Please know we will continue our prayers to strengthen your families as you are finally able to properly lay to rest your precious Tylee and JJ. As matters move through the judicial process, we pray that each of our families can be strengthened and trust that justice will be swiftly served. We wish to thank the many members of law enforcement and the FBI who continue to work tirelessly as investigations continue, and the public who have shown such love and support for our families. We also ask that our privacy continue to be respected at this time as we continue to grieve for Tammy and the Woodcock and the Ryan families. Grieve this unfathomable loss from Tammy's parents, siblings, and extended family.
Yeah, I mean, they lost a daughter, sister, aunt. They lost, and they understand that loss.
Yeah. And he had said too, I think a reporter had reached out to him at one point, and he did talk a little bit about the autopsy, and all he said was they're holding their breath. They haven't heard anything yet, and nobody in law enforcement is talking. So, I can't imagine what they feel to raise your kids and feel like that they have found their place in life. They've watched Tammy have her own children and go through a very long marriage by today's standards with Chad, where it seemed like on the surface everything was probably okay. And then she dies suddenly. She had just been in the home. She had just went to visit her parents.
Yeah.
And Chad had sent her because he had a vision. But I don't think she was there very long, though, right? It was like maybe a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think originally people thought she was there longer, but yeah, I think it ended up she came back the next day.
Yeah. But they did say that when she was there, she was dancing around the living room and seemed okay.
Yeah.
And you kind of wonder, too, just being home. I mean, like, there's something to say about being home.
Yeah.
With your parents in their house.
Yeah, and it seemed like her parents were really, awesome people, and just her upbringing sounded, really good and all. So
definitely. But so when she died, obviously that's when her name came to the forefront, when she was identified as being Chad's wife, who had just recently got remarried to Lori, and her husband had just died. So we were looking at some things about the autopsy because, as you guys know, we haven't heard anything yet. Every professional I've listened to or talked to has said there's no way there's any test pending.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
So the problem with doing an autopsy on a body this exhumed is she was embalmed, as we know, and that's where they remove your blood and they put a preservative into your body that keeps you from essentially it's supposed to be long enough for viewings. I don't think this is ever meant to preserve a body long term, and bodies decompose at different rates even if they've been embalmed. But I just feel like that's probably posed the biggest problem to this whole process.
Yeah, I think so too. And you get into the issue of why wasn't the autopsy done to start with.
Right.
And we know that because Idaho is a coroner state, meaning it's state law does not require an autopsy in a situation like this. The option to have an autopsy performed was up to the discretion of Daybell's next of kin. Now, I think if the coroner would have said, no, we're going to do an autopsy, I don't think they would have had that option.
Right.
And I guess each state is different. But the biggest issue that we had, like you said, that the blood is gone, and they can test other organs and tissues, but there's been so much evidence that was lost.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, medical examiners like to do an autopsy within 24 hours of death. It's just when your body breaks down so quickly.
Yeah.
When you're not embalmed, I mean, almost immediately your cells start exploding and your body kind of eats itself. And I know that's gross, but that's just what happens. It's life. And but Brenda Dye is the coroner who decided the autopsy wasn't needed. And so do you remember that voicemail from an investigator in Arizona that called, I believe they called dispatch to find out more about Tammy Daybell's death when it became apparent there may be other deaths surrounding Lori and Chad.
Yeah.
And he was so shocked that there was no autopsy. And I don't know word for word, but he said, so that's how you guys do that down there?
Yeah.
And the girl was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be some kind of like a national law that if you're going to be a coroner, you need to have a medical degree.
Yeah, it's weird, the law on that.
Yeah.
And I think each state is different, but yeah, it would make sense.
I mean, if you think over the course of time in the United States, how many people were murdered in a state where somebody with a high school, and I know a lot of people with high school diplomas. I don't know a lot that I would trust to determine whether or not my death was natural or maybe foul play.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go get a job at an auto parts store with a high school diploma, or I can go be a coroner.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's different by state. So
it really is. In South Carolina, where we are, the coroner is an elected position.
Yeah,
and
I think it is there too.
It is,
Yeah.
And enters. I think part time. She's maybe an EMT.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I just feel like we're at a point in time where we need to be sure people that are determining causes of death, whether or not they look suspicious or not. I just feel like it needs to be an MD degree.
Yeah. And we know that if she would have ordered an autopsy, it would have went to the medical examiner.
Right. She wouldn't have
done it. No.
But so it was just that decision not to that, I mean, potentially could cause Chad to get away with murder.
Yeah.
And
that's what's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah.
And I think he's got a lot of charges coming, and there's no risk he's ever going to be a free man. But I remember one time when I was at the Colorado theater shooting trial, and I think he had 100 and something counts of charges. And I remember somebody saying, oh, I mean, why does it matter? Because each life mattered. Each of those charges was a life that was either ended or impacted. So to say, well, he's going to go to jail for life for these kids. Well, but Tammy deserves justice too. Charles deserves justice. Potentially Joe Ryan deserves justice.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why people say, well, why do they get 2 life terms? Because when you get 1 life term, it doesn't take away the fact that you might have killed 2 people.
Yep.
That person deserves their justice. But so when they exhumed Tammy on, was it December 11th?
Yeah, I think so, because Alex died on the 12th.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, not at all a coincidence, right?
No.
Oh, man. This whole thing reeks. But autopsies typically take about 4 hours to get done. They had exhumed her at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And I think they had her reburied pretty shortly after.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They already had her laid back to rest. So what were they able to get from that autopsy? Well, we don't know. But I talked to a doctor and I've watched some things about autopsies. And, you know, even with having the blood drained out of the body and the formaldehyde put in, that definitely puts a damper on it. But there are other ways to get tissue samples.
Yeah.
And they can check the bile. They can check urine, the fluid behind the eye. Spinal fluid can hold clues, and any of the organs that are left,
Yep.
even down to like the liver and the brain, those are kind of the most important, I believe, because things go through our liver.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a doctor and was asking him, what if it's a case of, let's say, not even strangulation that's violent. Let's say it's a suffocation where somebody's drugged and then it's easy to suffocate. Can you really find a cause of death? And what did he tell us?
He said, yeah, that it would show.
Not always, but it is possible.
Yeah. That there would be evidence of that in the lungs. The lungs would show that there was something traumatic or something.
Mm-hmm. So, I've often thought maybe the reason they haven't released whether or not her death was murder is maybe they were unable to determine that with the autopsy. In fact, most medical professionals that have spoken publicly on this on the various shows, they're not super hopeful there will be a cause of death determined from her autopsy. But what are we looking for after that?
Yeah.
Some digital evidence.
Yeah.
So we know months ago they had said that Alex may have been implicated in Tammy Daybell's death. We think maybe that's who shot at her.
And we know his pings are everywhere. He carried his phone everywhere. So they're going to be able to put it together. Was it him, at her house when she got shot at? Was he there? Was it Chad? We've seen in those reports that they can pinpoint where you are at a time. So
yeah, I'm very interested to see if Alex's phone pinged in the driveway.
Yep.
I think maybe it will. I know for a while we had theorized maybe it was Chad, but he would have had to have run around the house to the back, and she was out front. So I don't think it was Chad. I think it probably was Alex.
Yeah, possibly, but we'll see.
Yeah, so we're just waiting on that. And then her friends, just had a lot of really nice things to say to her. But right before her death, she was different, according to a couple of friends. She just wasn't as talkative.
Yeah.
And we've theorized, in the past, maybe did Charles Vallow reach out to her like he threatened to do in the email to Lori's brother?
Yeah. And I think, we're going to find it. We're going to find out. We know all those emails were sent and all that. So we're going to see.
Yeah. So we just wanted to touch a little bit on Tammy Daybell. Hopefully we can learn a little more in the coming weeks about all this. I really hope we see some charges soon. If not, a week from today, we'll have those preliminary hearings, and we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about starting next week.
Yeah. And I hope for the Daybell kids and Tammy's family that they can get some closure on this, because it's got to be difficult for them not knowing. How hard is it on a kid to not know whether your dad had something to do with your mom's death?
And I think at this point, it's safe to assume he did.
Yeah.
But I think in an official capacity, if they don't get it through the autopsy, I'm certain they'll get it through digital. But just being in limbo for so long, and then dealing with the loss of your mom and everything else that's come along with this case, regardless of how people have acted in the past, I just can't sit here and talk bad about anybody because I've never been in those shoes. The whole world is watching you. The whole world is there as you're trying to figure all this out. But yeah, there's just so many lives involved. If you look at, just every life this has touched, just on a family level.
Yeah. Evil it's just crushed so many families, and it's just pure evil is all it is.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot about, did Tammy know? And Melanie Gibbs said, I believe she said she thought Tammy had confronted her.
Yeah. Or they thought she knew.
Yeah. But I think it's really brazen for Chad and Lori just to go walk around the track at BYU and act like a couple. I think that kind of, Melanie Gibbs said that.
Yeah. And I think that shows you, it sounds to me, they said that she didn't really come out in that area or whatever, that they didn't know her. That's just kind of weird.
But
that's your husband, and
yeah,
you would think it's a small town. You would think everybody knew.
You don't know,
who she
like, if
was.
your neighbor runs up to BYU for something and sees you out there kissing some blonde that's not your wife. They were pretty bold, but I guess maybe that goes with the whole mentality that they were superior. And maybe they had the same sort of outlook, is that if the world's ending, then we won't have to deal with this for long.
Yeah, and he didn't have that outlook on his face today.
No,
Just saying.
no. He was very glum, but serves him right. I mean, good grief. It's like it's evil. And I don't think I've seen many other cases where there's just this much evil and this many bodies.
Yeah.
There's just so much pain that they've left for so many people. And so we hope starting next Monday, we start to see the wheels of justice start cranking up. And we're going to be here the whole step of the way. We have started our YouTube channel. So I just tweeted out a link to that. I'll put it on Facebook as well. It's just these podcasts. We're uploading those. We had some people request that we put them on YouTube. I guess that's their preferred way to listen or whatever. So we've got that going. We'll be updating our website soon. And unless there's any major news this week, we might pop on and do another one. But we're going to save our energy for next week. It's going to be a lot.
And we've had some people ask us kind of like who we are. And so we may shoot out one that's just going to be a little lighthearted, kind of talking about who we are or whatever.
Yeah.
So we may do that one.
Yeah, we would like to do that. I think
if you don't want to listen, you don't have to. We'll give you a heads up.
Yeah. Some people may be like, I don't care. You guys are friends. Just tell me what I need to hear.
Yeah.
But we have had some people ask, like, how do you guys know each other? How's your friendship been for 30 years and that sort of thing? And we definitely have a deep history. My sister from another mister, and we have a good time. But in the meantime, we're gearing up for the preliminaries. Just follow us on all the social media, and we're going to keep you guys informed. If you have any questions, send them our way.
Yeah, if you want to know anything. And if you struggle finding our YouTube channel, it'll be on social media, and it's also on our website. So that's www.prettyliesandalibis.org.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a good rest of the night, and we will talk to you soon.
Good night.